It's a very intense new opener for the TechUnited Ask Member Anything, where today I'm very excited to welcome Christian Guirnalda, who I've known for many years. He's the director of Verizon's 5G Labs and Innovation Centers. Psyched to have you here, Christian. Feel like this is many years in the making. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me. What better thing to do on what day is it?
Wednesday.
Wednesday? Hump day. Glad to be here.
That's right. Where are you? So I'm in Hoboken. It's snowing outside my window right now. Where are you?
I'm down the turnpike, exit 8A in Cranberry, and it is not snowing here.
Well, apparently, I don't know if it's headed. I don't even know where Cranberry is. I'll pretend it's headed your way, but I don't know.
You don't know your turnpike exits yet? Come on.
Device that could tell me where things were super fast. So let's talk about your journey in the tech space, then we'll get into the 5G labs. But where'd you grow up?
Yeah, so look, I love New Jersey. I love it so much. I put it in my Twitter handle, and
Me too.
You do, right?
It's my job, though.
Aaron Startup Price NJ, something like that, right?
Yeah.
I grew up in Union, exit 139 off the Parkway, and we'll continue to make Turnpike and Parkway references throughout this. But I think New Jersey through and through is just sort of an amazing place for opportunity, and I think grew up in Union, went to school, and came back and sort of been there ever since. You and I met, gosh, at a New Jersey tech meetup when we were living in Hoboken.
Yeah.
Almost a decade ago. So I think the roots there and the sort of relationships with the community are super great. I started sort of the tech journey with a startup called Patch, and Patch.com had its roots sort of growing up throughout local New Jersey communities, and that was trying to figure out how hyper local and local newspapers can switch to digital, and what a ride that was. Wound up getting bought back by Tim Armstrong into AOL, and really,
were you there for that whole experience?
A good chunk. I mean, it was 30 Patch sites one day, and the next it was about 800 across the country.
Yeah.
But what a swing at it, right? Like, how do you think about how to save and continue local conversations, because it's the communities that we live in really that dictate how we live, who we work with, and how our sort of kids grow up. So
absolutely,
that for me was a big one on how technology can start to create really good impact. And at that time, then moved into Verizon, and Verizon, I could go through the whole sort of journey, but local, right? Basking Ridge headquarters, tons of our employees across the New Jersey area, and
worth mentioning, like, one of the biggest tech companies on the planet right here in New Jersey. That often I think people forget. In fact, maybe you can remind people of some of the brands that Verizon owns, because I think people forget the enormous umbrella.
Yeah, I mean, I think folks they're like, hey, I got this thing in my pocket, and darn, that service is fantastic. But it's a portfolio of businesses. Everyone sort of knows the Verizon store where they get their sort of cell phone plans, but it's also broadband, and so that's Verizon Fios to your home, and we've even gotten what we call 5G home in parts of the country where you can now use the 5G network to deliver broadband to your home. So that's sort of the consumer side of the house. I'm super excited about the enterprise side of the house, so Verizon Business, and Verizon Business is sort of all the things you need to connect, the broadband pieces, but also things like enterprise solutions. How do I rethink the way I connect with my employees? We acquired Blue Jeans, which is a video conferencing service to help use that broadband for new things, not just for conference calling like this, but doctor's visits, right? And how relevant is that? Or how we sort of collaborate with students and teachers and education. So the portfolio is expanded. A bigger ticket one that was in the news a bunch over the last couple of years is sort of the Verizon Media portfolio. And so things like TechCrunch and the things that you've seen as brands, Yahoo Sports, still the number one source for sports information, for financial information, and for news. part of the Verizon portfolio. So
Yeah,
sort of
it's awesome.
a vast amount of brands and businesses. And I'm lucky enough to be in a place where this whole 5G thing is going to help drive those forward faster, but also for our customers.
Yeah. So explain to people what 5G Labs is.
Sure. 5G Labs is something that was born back in 2017. That answers the question, what the heck is 5G? What do I do with it?
That was me on my next question. We could start with what is 5G if you want to start there. Yeah, let's start with what is 5G and why should people care?
Yeah. Look, I came from our venture capital group and saw such amazing opportunity in entrepreneurs to take new technology platforms and turn them into brand new things that just didn't exist before. And so, if you look at the sort of 4G world, you sort of you almost forget what you had back in the 3G world, and before there were smartphones and before there were app stores. I was perfectly fine, hanging out in high school playing a game of Snake, and that was the coolest thing ever. Like, I can play a game on the phone, and oh, by the way, I don't have to call my dad, collect from the payphone at the gym entryway to say pick me up, so I didn't have to put quarters in. Right now,
I was the pay collect. Hey, it's Aaron, pick me up at the park.
Exactly.
Sorry, I don't know. Verizon may have been the carrier at the time, so I will apologize. Get that off my chest. Even though you and I were very young at the time, but still, were you one of those guys?
I was. I didn't have too many quarters in my pocket for the gym.
Yeah.
But think about it, right? Like, within a generation, we've gone from trying to not put quarters in a payphone to, well, now I got a phone in my pocket and I can play games on it like Snake, to you have a computer in your pocket now, and it the devices today have more capability than some of the spaceships that we sent to the moon. And
I think we take it for granted, but especially now highlighted by the pandemic, right? Imagine if you couldn't connect with people, if you couldn't, beyond Zoom or Blue Jeans or the variety of services out there, bring people together. I mean, it's certainly, I'm sure I take it for granted. I imagine you may too, because we've been doing this for a while pre-pandemic. Yeah. But what a different, I think that the social unrest that will be occurring right now, not that there isn't social unrest in general, but I think the reaction, at a different time would be very, very different. So I just as a reminder to those of us who are living in these daily virtual worlds, it's a pretty incredible time to be alive during such a crazy time.
Yeah. So we're at the point now where we can go into a browser and you and I can have an avatar of one another, and we're in a virtual environment talking. And that's, a couple decades from putting the coin in the coin slot. So
absolutely,
that's the 4G world, and that's today's world around connectivity. 5G is something that, sure, it's way faster, right? I think when you think about it, your download speeds, you get a movie before you get on the airplane in 6 seconds instead of 6 minutes. But that doesn't really get as much into the transformation that can happen in how you live, how you sort of work, and how you build applications for the future. And think about how applications work today. I can download it onto my device, and it's X amount of megabits. I can have something in the cloud. What winds up really being the constraint is I can only put so much on this device, or it can only take me so long to have that application stream over these networks to the mobile device or to a laptop somewhere. So if you think about 5G, now that pipe is for what we call 5G ultra wideband, which is like the big one of 5G, fastest 5G in the world. It's 25 times faster than 4G LTE, right? That's gigabits and gigabits per second. And what can I do with that? Well, sure, I can stream all these things. Sure, it's super, super fast, but the fidelity of these experiences get better. The way that you sort of communicate, and even today, sitting on video calls, sometimes it gets a little buggy, right? Or I've got a sign that says you're on mute, or you need to call back in. In a 5G world, things just work better. And now that sort of pipe there, all the really cool things about how I now build that application or experience in a new way start to unlock even further. We talk to developers all the time at the labs, and they sort of have like these mental ceilings on how they can build their product or service, or how they build a creative experience, or how high fidelity or reactive it can be. Now that sort of unlocks. Now the sort of sky's the limit on what you can go and do, and what we've done is tried to build sort of these locations where we can educate folks on what 5G can be, what edge computing can be, which is just like the thing we didn't have in the 4G world that I want to talk about a little bit. And then how those can impact local communities, our tri-state area, but also across the globe, from London to Los Angeles. And the more we can go and start to build these things sooner, that's what we've been doing since 2017, the more we can allow people to see that ceiling doesn't necessarily exist in a 5G world, with how you architect your application or how you build your experience, and how we can ultimately use that to help our communities and our society.
Yeah, there's so much. I mean, I want to go into a bunch of areas there, but what gets me particularly excited about this relationship with you and with Verizon is that I very strongly believe this is an inevitability, that 5G will be everywhere. It's a matter of when. And for us to be leading the way in this region and giving people an opportunity to get earlier access here, which is not often the case in New Jersey, I find it to be particularly exciting. We're going to talk a little bit later about what we did in Hoboken and some of the other things we're working on. But the cloud computing piece, I think that people may not understand how important that is. So if you could touch on, if I was trying to explain to my mom, now you can do this, right? How would you, and I didn't prep for those watching. I haven't prepped you for that question, but I'm curious if you could pull off the explanation to Aaron's mom.
Yeah.
She, by the way, very likely watching.
Oh, hi, Aaron's mom. Hope you're doing well. Hi, my mom. I should probably start with that. So I think think about an application like Lego bricks, right? And in an application, one Lego brick might manage the streaming of the content. Another Lego brick in that creation might have the buttons that you press. Another might be how you pull data into it from different places. Today, you either put the Legos on the phone, because your application kind of lives in the cloud somewhere and on the phone. Today, you can put some of those Legos on the phone, and you can put some of those Legos in the cloud. When we talk about what we call edge computing, the thing that connects those two locations is the network, right? And so now you've got a 5G network that connects between the cloud and between your end device. The best part about that is, well, now I can put some of those Legos sort of in between. And now I've got this continuous architecture that, well, maybe I can put more functionality and Legos there at the edge, closer to where that end device is. Maybe I can pull some of those things that had to be on the device off of that device and into the edge. And now I can do more things on the device, or maybe the device gets smaller or cheaper. That's the sort of big wow factor between 4G and 5G. In a 4G world, you had that connection and you had this kind of throughput. And in a 5G world, that throughput gets to this, and now I can do things in between. Now I can have computers between. And that's Ben behind me, who's telling me that it's now snowing outside. So down the turnpike.
The real-time family updates.
That's right. That's the big difference around edge computing, right? The future of where you think about having those Legos shifts, and now you have options, and now you can add more Legos and build different types of applications and services. And maybe that's in a factory, or maybe that's in a hospital, and maybe that's a solution that can go and help a small business.
Yeah, I think, and that last part, I was really struck during Propellify. We had a conversation about 5G, and Verizon, I think it was Sampath, was talking about really positioning around the marketplace, the enabler of the technology, and let the world figure out the best applications. And when I talk to people, individually about 5G, the common question is, well, people talk about, I can get my movie in 3 seconds instead of a minute. Obviously, I don't think that's the use case any of us. I mean, that's a nice to have, but that's not the need to have. I think when we talk about things like autonomous vehicles and healthcare and some of these other applications, I'd love for you to share a little bit about where you see potentially, right? We don't know exactly what will unfold, but where you see potentially some of the most exciting applications.
Sure. So we'll hit on those too, right? I think if you think about healthcare and autonomous, two good examples. And we sort of talked about that compute that can happen at the edge. Really, what that does is it allows sort of this orchestration of data between maybe many different devices and the analytics that happen at the edge. So imagine you're in a city, and when we're in Hoboken right now with the 5G network, and the sort of traffic cameras are all doing what they do today around. Well, I can see that there's an accident, or looks like there's some traffic there on Washington Street today. If you think about the concept of sort of video intelligence and computer vision, we can in the 5G network take a higher fidelity video and process that at the edge, and at the edge determine, well, there's a car coming down first and it's going this fast, and there's a car coming down Washington and it's going this fast. Maybe some of them become autonomous cars that have additional data to think about that intersection. And for us, you can compute that data in the edge, so I know what's in the video stream, and then secondarily do this calculus that says these two are going too fast. Maybe there's something happening there. 5G in the edge can start to allow those autonomous cars to see around corners. And at the University of Michigan M-City test track, we've already built some of that, where the car can go down the street, and the person can go walk in front, and the autonomous car, based off of 5G, that edge compute and the analytics, can stop. And so those are the types of things that do that for individual vehicles, but then start to triangulate that across the data sources in ways that haven't been done before. And the low latency of 5G allows car manufacturers and cities to take advantage of that capability. On the healthcare side, so we were having a conversation the other day, and one of the solutions that we've put on the edge and the 5G network is sort of video cameras that when you sort of have a catheter inserted into somebody for a doctor to see, hey, is there something wrong here or not? A similar architecture, where now that video feed, where the doctor and the assistants might just be there trying to say, hey, is there something there or not? We can use analytics and, again, computer vision to think about how we can assist the doctor and say, hey, we see that there might be something there. Maybe focus your attention to that when they're trying to go and do all these things in real time and be out as fast as possible.
So could you imagine something like, I have a Nest camera, right? It's currently thinks it knows when I have a package delivered. Are you thinking that potentially with this technology in the future, that the medical devices might say, in the same way you see a square of maybe package, maybe person, maybe dog, maybe cancerous issue, something to look at, highlight areas maybe in real time or close to it to augment or complement the capability of the human?
We've done that already. Exactly.
Yeah. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. And I had a friend that was going in and had a test done, and it was just that there were folks that were huddled around a screen trying to figure out, is there something there or not? This is an enabler for them to have some more information and analytics behind them, not to obviously replace, but to go and give new tools for them to make better decisions and prognosis about what the experience is. So that's one example around healthcare. The other, I'd say, is augmented reality. And so we talked a little bit about computer vision, but augmented reality and augmented reality headsets become the evolution, I think, of where people interact with data and information and computing. And so I think on the first piece, you see the form factors of these things continue to get smaller and cheaper. That's happening naturally. And when you think about the edge compute, that's an enabler of that as well, to accelerate to the point where they can get smaller. The compute that's on the device itself can get into the 5G edge. And now you're at a point for those to open up in ways that are sort of more natural to how people interact. One of the things that we've done with a company called MetaViz is work with the VA. And in the VA in Palo Alto, we put a 5G network and some edge computing capability, and put MetaViz into that setup. And so when you think about what MetaViz is, today you've sort of got these 2D floppy black and white things that the doctor puts on the little light screen before they go into the operatory. What MetaViz has done is sort of take that same scan, the CAT scan, if you will, which is super high fidelity, it's gigabits of information, and made it into a 3D model of what they scanned. And so 3D models on a 2D screen still don't make as much impact as if you've got it in front of you and you can sort of manipulate it and you sort of look through it in new ways. So they've taken an AR headset, given it to a surgeon before they go into the operatory, and their pre-op approach is more informed because now they sort of really understand the idiosyncrasies of where the vein is going or where the cancer might be and how to think about that. Those are the types of things that are just super exciting, because now it's not just about a higher fidelity piece of content or asset. It's about how that gets delivered in a new form factor that's more natural for how human beings are meant to interact. And look, I love seeing you on video chat, but it's more natural if we're sitting on on the Pier Park overlooking the Hudson, and that's human beings what we want to do. I think what 5G and Edge and these types of things continue to help accelerate are the ability for how we interact to become more natural and enabled by technology and digitization. The last example I'd say is sort of with education, and so we've got Ben down there doing his Zoom kindergarten right now. But how can we start to think about educational content in new modalities and form factors? And so we've done some work with the Smithsonian and Cooper Hewitt in New York City, their Design and Interaction Museum, to think about how the whole library, the Indiana Jones warehouse of artifacts, can come to life even when you're not in the museum. And so we're working with them to take their open access collection. And if you haven't seen it, 3d.si.edu, they've got such an amazing set of artifacts there. Can we go and bring them over a cellular network into augmented reality? Similar to what we talked about with the doctors, right? Can we go and take the woolly mammoth and from the woolly mammoth scan, put it over a browser into an experience where I just scan a QR code and now I've got a woolly mammoth in my backyard when I'm talking about the prehistoric era.
Yeah.
My era is mixed up, but you get my point.
Absolutely. It's really incredible. I mean, what do you think the opportunity is for entrepreneurs? What should they be thinking about? Because typically, you're going to be thinking about timing and an opportunity in industry. Where do you think the early opportunity will be?
I think I'll think about it as the Netflix example. You and I are old enough to know what DVDs are and what disk drives are, right? But when Netflix launched, Netflix was a delivery of a physical DVD to your house for all you youngsters out there. And what wound up happening is they had the foresight to know that the thing was going to stream over the internet. And they knew that was the infrastructure that was going to support their future business model to scale and to have differentiation compared to the Blockbusters of the world.
Yeah.
And so that is a decent analogy for 5G and edge computing, where it's coming, right? Like we're and it's not just coming; it's already here. In the U.S., we've got 60 cities that have 5G ultra wideband by the end of the year, and that's I walk down Washington Street or 6th Avenue in New York, I've got gigabits streaming as I'm walking down, and okay, that's a big deal. That's way more than what Netflix thought was coming.
Yeah,
when they switched from physical DVDs to streaming, and so I think that becomes the sort of model to know. I've got 60 cities even in 2020. Can't wait for 21, by the way. That I have that capability, and then what we call 5G nationwide is already covering and launched with the iPhone 12, 200 million people in the U.S. So the scale is already here. It's not like you even need to have the sort of DVDs going yet. The iPhone 12 becomes sort of the marquee moment, and you saw our CEO on stage with Tim Cook talking about what ultra wideband means for how you get the most out of those devices. be it LiDAR cameras to go and scan things and create more immersive content for you to create on your own.
We have a question here from Dell. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
He said, do you see more virtual reality on the edge with 5G? Dell's with Safari Solutions, but I'm curious what you're seeing there.
Yeah, I think broadly spatial computing, and call it the VR, AR, XR world, just gets better faster. And I'll give you an example. In 2018, we worked with our foundation to do an EdTech challenge. And we've got great programs for students across the country called Verizon Innovative Learning. Some of those schools we've put 5G connections to. So you could power all the experiences. One of the first things they put was VR headsets. And then on top of those VR headsets, we work with the foundation to give nonprofits the resources to create a new form of what that virtual reality experience can be for those students.
Yeah.
And so, an example there is a nonprofit out of Columbia University called Visceral Science. Visceral Science took the solar system and allowed for the students to be in a shared VR environment with the planets and learn about physics and learn about gravity. That sort of fidelity and interactivity over 5G and edge start to really unlock, this crazy transformation from paper books for a student to things like augmented reality that we talked about with the Smithsonian, who really shared experiences using VR and 5G edge.
Yeah. And then David Palmchak, you and he may have met at some point. You probably have crossed paths, but he's with the Brand Experience Lab, which they put together some really incredible retail experiences, which sort of ties into what we did in Hoboken. We teamed up with Verizon to bring products and services to retailers in Hoboken who've been affected by the pandemic. And I'm very proud of some of the things that have come together there. How do you see 5G playing a role in retail?
Yeah. So the thing that I love about all the work that we're doing across the labs is it starts to connect sort of the previously maybe disjointed industries to one another, right? The connection is for the phone, but it's also connection between how the different pieces in the value chain start to come together in ways that they haven't before. And so if you think about retail, you sort of have front of house, you've got back of house, you've got consumer facing experiences, some analog, some digital. When we think about the retail environment, those things start to blend together. And I think if you look at what's happened during the pandemic about real-time sort of inventory management and awareness to the end consumer, that's sort of an indicator of the back of house, what's in stock down the street at the store.
Yeah.
That starts to blend those two. 5G starts to make that happen even faster. Now I can have these sort of consumer touch points where maybe I'm using augmented reality while I'm walking down the aisle of the store to understand, does the granola have peanuts in it because my kid's got a peanut allergy? Or here's a real-time offer based off of your sort of loyalty program for you. And when I engage in that physical environment, that data can stream direct back to the supply chain, or to somebody in the back of house, hey, we're out of stock for this granola bar because Christian couldn't buy it. Well, go restock, and we see there's 10 left in the back room. Then when he puts the 10 out, the supply chain manager at headquarters can say, hey, ship some from the distribution center. So really the network starts to take those data points and in real time create a real-time enterprise. And now it's bigger than sort of those individual touch points. And the sort of the thing to think about for enterprises is it's not just sort of the CTO, CIO making sort of these decisions about infrastructure in a one particular lens. Now they've got to think about those touch points that are non-traditionally connected as much to start to create this transformation where the CMO, the COO, the CTO, the CIO now have a shared view of where that digital investment for transformation really happens. And the network and the edge become a real enabler of that. And those are for the big companies that can sort of think across the full supply chain.
Yeah.
Those best practices then relevant to the small business that's sitting on Main Street. And the supercomputer in your pocket with 5G and an ultra wideband and a lidar camera. Well, now I've got a ton of capability for people at scale, that are running the coffee shop, that are running the flower shop, that are trying to figure out how to do real estate showings when you can't get two people in the same apartment. And tons of examples that for the Hoboken program we're already working on.
It's very exciting. We're going to wrap up shortly, but I being a New Jersey focused organization for TechUnited New Jersey, I think a lot about the impacts of the future of work and personal geographic preference. I'm curious what you think this kind of technology does for where people want to live.
I haven't been outside of my house in 2 months. No, I'm just kidding. I think there's two or so things that.
By the way, are you going in right now at all?
So everyone's got to have the safety protocols in place. So I think there's a ton of stuff that our HR leadership have put into place, and obviously varied regulatory things that have to happen either locally, statewide, and within the cities that the teams are going to. So I think one example is the network over the duration of the pandemic still was getting deployed. And so getting the 5G out there, getting the fiber in the ground, getting the nodes hung up on the street poles, right? Those things still needed to happen and had to happen. So our sort of field teams are keeping going, and God bless them, because now we need connections like this so that our kids can go and log in.
Yeah,
we're definitely out there. We're still working, and we're still making sure the network gets deployed to support everybody at home and at work.
So back to the geographic thing. What do you think happens over the long term?
We'll see. I think there's two pieces to it. It is probably to the individual company to determine what can they do remote, what can they do locally. Having the connectivity to where you are is probably an important part of it, but businesses are different, right? For certain scenarios, you got to be in front of folks. For certain scenarios, you got to be in the field to work and be at the office. So I think that's the first piece. It's probably different by company. You've seen tons of companies come out with their policies on what's happening in 21 and beyond. But at the same time, the sort of race to innovate, and how many times have you heard we've done more in 6 months than we would have in 6 years? That creates new options for that conversation to happen, right?
Absolutely.
Shared VR environments, blue jeans and telepresence. Those tools are now more available to inform that decision.
Yeah,
and
awesome.
In years past, you might not have had those options, and so we've even been working on things like that at the labs and with our Verizon business group to make sure, when you have that option and decision to make around, do people come in, over what time period, what's safe and what's not, and we've done stuff around venue management for things like stadiums and places where people need to come together, to put new tools in place for folks to be safe and socially distanced.
I think there's a really fascinating New Jersey opportunity for us to absorb or retain some of the talent that commutes to New York. And I'm especially, again, on the inevitability of 5G, when you think, and then to your point about this 2D experience, while certainly effective, at some point may become a more immersive 3D experience, and your ability to do that powered by a 5G network in a remote place anywhere in the country or not in a major city. I think it's a really fascinating period that we're in to see what unfolds. For people who are interested, who think that they have something that Verizon should take a look at, because we tend to get a lot of follow-up. I'd love to talk to Christian about XYZ. What do you want to know about, and what might you respectfully pass on, so people have some understanding of the kinds of things that they should reach out on?
Yeah, look, I think there's a couple pieces. One, go out and get a 5G phone and see it for yourself. From Verizon, I think there's something to be said about actually having it in your hand and seeing it. And I can say, from developers and hackathons we've done in the past, once you start to go and build your application and service on top of it, that's really where you're like, the light bulb goes off a little bit and says, wait a minute, I couldn't really do that before, and now I can, and well, what else can I do?
Yeah.
ceiling is a little bit unlocked for you. So I think, thinking about what can I do with the bandwidth is the first piece for an entrepreneur. And second is, how does that, mesh with edge computing? And I think about my architecture and where the containers are today, what goes into the cloud and what's on the device. What are the things you think, hey, if I put this on the edge, well, that's probably a good place to start.
Yeah.
And we've got with 5G Edge, our partnership with AWS, that's already out there. And so for more information, I can send over and maybe share a link after this to find more information about 5G Edge and get you onboarded through that process. And you can start to work on that. We're going to be live with edge cities, 10 of them by year end. Got a bunch online, added Vegas last week, I believe. And so for developers to think about the 5G Edge, it's out there. It's not a Netflix scenario where we're still in DVD world. The tools are there, and I'll share with you, Aaron, where they can find more information on it.
Awesome. We'll get that out.
Right.
Well, like I said, we're very excited about this relationship and this partnership, and I'm expecting people will see a lot more from us in 2021. Christian's been a steady part of the tech community in the New Jersey region for maybe a decade. I may have known you, so certainly early times of the New Jersey Tech Meetup, and so I really appreciate how things come full circle. So I hope you get a chance to enjoy what might turn into a little bit of an actual snow day with Ben. Actually, I almost forgot the most important question, which is what can people do? This is a community; it's a two-way street. What can people do to help you? What are you looking for? And forget the 5G Verizon stuff. Just like people who want to help out Christian. What do you? I mean, maybe tied into Verizon, but there's an opportunity for some selfish answer here. Anything that you're looking for help with at the moment.
So here's an interesting answer. I want to find more ways for our community to come together and for us to sort of lean on each other more than ever. If there are communities, working groups that we're trying to solve for problems. The big selfish thing is let's work together to go and help our community. Let's help our society, and good things will happen. The network will be there, the companies and enterprises and Verizon will be there. But beyond that, how do we work together as a community? Where can we go and help? We sit on a number of sort of advisory boards for cities and for developer communities. If you've got one of those, I'm happy to help and connect to the resources that outside of the things that we're talking about with Verizon or 5G. I think that's where the sort of the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, and you have some working parts that you do for your job, but those working parts give us some expertise to go and help each other. And
I love that.
Love to do some of that together.
And it's a perfect example of what we've been doing in Hoboken, where we can provide some support for retailers, but also inspire the community about what's possible. And like you said, the business case gets pulled into it, but that's to not lead there is impressive. I don't think people expect that out of a Verizon. I'm glad we could put a face to it. It's
one of our pillars, right?
Yeah.
I think you hear more and more about sort of societal impact for corporations. Our sort of leadership, Hans is our new CEO, probably a couple of years in now. It is transformational to hear the commitment to that, and makes it a part of who we are and what we do. And I think even as you think about your business, startup or otherwise, thinking about how you use the assets that you got, the capabilities you've got, the connections that you've got to do a little bit more with it, instead of staying just laser focused on the bottom line and sort of just the work piece. The thing that's nicer is we can go and help our kids, our families, our soccer leagues, our local groups, and that should be a part of how we start to think about what we do every day, not an afterthought.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's a great place to end. As you know, if we're in person, I'm a big fan of the high five, so we'll end with the virtual high five. 1, 2, 3, boom. Good to see you, Christian. Thank you so much for everything that you do to build a better future for all. The new motto, the relatively new model. Love VP Taylor. He's been coming to New Jersey Tech meetups for a long time to help build a better future for all. Check out Verizon5glabs.com. Go to techunited.co to come visit to attend our annual award ceremony tonight. Some fun new things happening there, including a sing-along to Tom Petty's "I Won't Back Down," which I saw that you saw our original airing for. So it should be a fun night. Anyway, thanks for joining us. Enjoy the rest of the day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe.